On Thursday, June 25th, 2026, the BFGoodrich tire plant in Tuscaloosa, Alabama goes quiet in the middle of a shift. Not a fire, not a strike. Michelin North America idles the plant so it can tell the people inside what happens next. 1,200 of them are losing their jobs. The plant does not close that day. It reopens the following Monday. Tires keep coming off the line. That is the part most coverage skips, and it is the part that matters, because Tuscaloosa gets something most towns in this position never get. Time. Roughly 2.5 years of it. The question is what a city does with a countdown. Here is what Michelin actually announces. Tire production and rubber mixing at the Tuscaloosa site ramp down in phases, beginning early next year, and conclude by the end of 2028. Nearly all BFGoodrich production in the United States consolidates at the company's factory in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The stated reason is not offshoring. Michelin's release says both the Tuscaloosa and Fort Wayne plants operate well below their designed capacities, creating structural inefficiencies the company says cannot be sustained. It also cites intensifying competition in the recreation and off-road tire market, which is BFGoodrich's core business. Terry Redmile, Michelin's Senior Vice President for Manufacturing Operations in the Americas, says Fort Wayne is better positioned to consolidate the capacity because of its size, footprint, and infrastructure. He also says the company could not identify any feasible structure that would let it keep operating in Tuscaloosa. Read that carefully. This is a decision between two American factory towns, and one of them wins on square footage. There is a tension inside Michelin's own statement worth noticing. Redmile describes BFGoodrich as a pioneering American brand and an enduring symbol of car and truck culture, and credits the dedication of the Tuscaloosa teams for it. The company is closing the plant that earned the brand that description. The numbers underneath are worth holding on to. According to the West Alabama Chamber of Commerce, the Tuscaloosa plant employs about 1,450 people. Michelin says roughly 1,200 are affected. The company has not said what happens to the rest. The site runs two operations. It builds passenger car and light truck tires, and it produces semi-finished materials used in tire construction. Both wind down. Under the Federal WARN Act, the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, employers with 100 or more workers are required to give 60 days advance notice before a mass layoff of this scale. That notice is a legal floor, not a courtesy. It is also the clock that starts the paperwork for everything that comes next. No separations are expected for several months. Michelin says it will begin discussions with union leaders about separation benefits under the existing collective bargaining agreement. The plant's workers are represented by the United Steelworkers, the union that covers most of Michelin's North American manufacturing operations, and what comes out of those negotiations will define the financial floor for 1,200 people. Tuscaloosa's mayor, Walt Maddox, calls the plant an anchor for the county for 80 years and one of its largest and most enduring employers. 80 years, by his count, puts the plant's origins somewhere around 1946. Kip Tyner, president of the Tuscaloosa City Council, says he was surprised by the announcement and puts the figure at roughly 1,300 people out of work. Congresswoman Terry Sewell says the plant provided good-paying jobs and helped grow Tuscaloosa's middle class for generations. Every one of those statements is true, and every one of them describes the kind of loss that, in most towns, is the opening chapter of a collapse. Tuscaloosa is not going to collapse. Here is the fact that changes the story. BFGoodrich is not Tuscaloosa's largest employer. It is not the second largest either. The largest employer in Tuscaloosa is the University of Alabama, which reports 11,862 employees in its 2024 to 2025 figures. That breaks down into 5,304 staff, 4,376 student employees, and 2,182 faculty. In the fall of 2025, the university enrolls 42,360 students, a record, up 3.7% on the year before. The university reports $3.4 billion in annual statewide economic impact, supporting more than 15,000 jobs across Alabama. A university does not shed 11,000 jobs because a tire plant winds down. Its revenue comes from tuition, research funding, and an endowment. None of it is tied to the price of rubber. 19 miles east of downtown, in Vance, sits the second anchor. Mercedes-Benz U.S. International builds sport utility vehicles there. Just 3 months earlier, in March 2026, 3 months before the BFGoodrich announcement, Mercedes says the operation employs about 5,800 people, represents more than $7 billion in investment, and has just built its 5 millionth vehicle in the state. In the same announcement, Mercedes commits another $4 billion to the Tuscaloosa County plant by 2030. That plant opened in 1997 as the first Mercedes-Benz passenger vehicle factory built outside Germany. Roughly 2/3 of what it produces is exported, which makes the county's healthiest anchor a business whose fortunes track global demand rather than local. So, consider the arithmetic. In one county, inside the same 12 weeks, one manufacturer announces the end of about 1,200 jobs over 2.5 years, and another commits $4 billion through 2030. If you read the headline, Tuscaloosa is a town losing its factory. If you read the county's balance sheet, Tuscaloosa is a place where 2 of its 3 anchors are still growing. That is the diversification argument. On the city's numbers, it holds. Now here is why it does not help the 1,200. A city's employment statistics and a worker's prospects are different measurements. Tuscaloosa's aggregate job count can hold steady, while every person inside that plant ends up worse off, and nothing in the county-level data would show it. Start with what those jobs are. Tire building and rubber mixing are skilled industrial work, built on years inside one plant, on seniority, on a union contract. The University of Alabama's 11,000 positions are overwhelmingly academic, administrative, research, and student roles. A rubber mixer with 20 years on the floor does not transfer into a faculty line. Some will find facilities and maintenance work on campus. Most cannot. Mercedes is the closer match, and Mercedes is not hiring 1,200 people to absorb them. $4 billion is capital investment in tooling and product, and capital investment in modern automotive manufacturing does not scale headcount the way it did in 1997. Tier 1 suppliers like Magna and Martin Rea, who feed operations like the Vance plant, may see some demand for skilled trades, but that is incremental absorption, not a landing pad. Then there is the timing. The wind down runs into 2028. 2.5 years is enough time for a worker to retrain. It is also enough time for a worker to wait, because there is a job on the line until the phase-out reaches them, and because separation benefits are still being negotiated. The people most likely to hold on are the ones with the most seniority, which means the ones with the deepest specific skills and the fewest transferable ones. For those who do choose to retrain, the infrastructure exists locally. Shelton State Community College runs workforce development programs specifically designed around the manufacturing corridor in Tuscaloosa County. Workers who lost their jobs due to increased foreign competition may also qualify for trade adjustment assistance, a federal program administered through the Alabama Department of Commerce that covers retraining costs, income support, and job search assistance. Whether TAA applies here depends on how the displacement is formally categorized, but it is the first thing an affected workers advocate should check. That is the pattern worth watching. Not a city collapsing. A cohort quietly falling out of the middle class while the city around them posts healthy numbers. There is one more layer, and it rarely makes the local news. Anchor plants do not employ only their own workers. In March 2026, Averitt Express filed notice with the Alabama Department of Commerce that it would lay off 193 employees after its contract with Mercedes-Benz U.S. International ended. That is a logistics company losing work at the healthy anchor, not the closing one. The Lesson Transfers. A plant of 1,450 people supports freight, maintenance contractors, staffing agencies, food service, and the small businesses whose customers are people finishing a shift. None of those losses sit inside Michelin's 1,200. None of them get announced on a Thursday morning with a statement from a senior vice president. And then there is Fort Wayne. Michelin's statement is unusually direct about it. Nearly all BFGoodrich production consolidates there. One American city's 80-year anchor becomes another American city's expansion. Fort Wayne is not taking these jobs from a foreign competitor. It is taking them from Tuscaloosa. This is the part of American industrial decline that gets narrated badly. The story is almost never a company leaving the country. It is far more often a company choosing between two places that both did everything right and telling one of them the building is the wrong size. Michelin says Tuscaloosa lost on footprint and infrastructure. Nothing in the announcement suggests the workforce failed. The plant did not lose a quality war. It lost a capacity comparison, settled in a room none of those workers were in. So what should you watch between now and the end of 2028? 3 things. First, the separation package. Michelin says it will negotiate with the United Steelworkers under the current collective bargaining agreement. What comes out of that determines whether 1,200 people land or fall. Second, whether anything takes the site. A tire plant is a large industrial parcel with power, water, and rail access already in place, exactly what brownfield redevelopment programs are designed for. The Tuscaloosa County Economic Development Authority is the agency that will lead that process, and its first 18 months of activity will tell you whether this site gets reused or sits. Industrial parcels with existing infrastructure do not stay vacant forever, but the difference between 12 months and 5 years is a policy choice, not a market outcome. Third, the county's unemployment rate. Watch it stay low. Watch it stay low the entire time. Because that number holding steady is exactly what will convince everyone outside Tuscaloosa that nothing much happened here. Tuscaloosa has what the single industry towns never had. 2 other anchors, both healthy, one of them expanding. The city will be fine. That was never the same question as whether the 1,200 will be.